Everybody's always telling you to find your purpose, though. They're telling you that from when you're a little kid. They don't tell you what purpose even is. The work of our life is closing the authenticity gap on all of our values as best we can. I am like the poster child for somebody who could have done it sooner. I literally, I was alone in my room at night, and I thought, for the first time in my life, I'm going to do this terrifying thing. I'm going to bet on myself.
Do you think there's ever a point where it's too late? What's up, rich friends? Welcome back to another episode of Net Worth and Chill with me, your host, Vivian 2, aka your rich BFF and your favorite Wall Street girly. And listen, let's cut straight to the chase. I love a good decision-making framework. It's just true. It makes things so much easier. And people ask me all the time how I make such smart financial choices, which, is kind of my thing. But honestly, having a system makes everything a lot clearer, and it kind of takes the emotions out of having to make those hard choices. But here's the thing. Most of us are winging it when it comes to our biggest money decisions, whether that's switching jobs, buying a house, or figuring out our career path. We're making choices based on emotions or what kind of sounds good in the moment instead of thinking through the real life consequences. But today's guest has helped millions of people think clear about everything from career moves to money choices. She has literally written the playbook on winning at work and at life. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to New York Times bestselling author, entrepreneur, and NYU professor, Suzy Welch.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a minute since we were together playing poker, as gals do at your home.
I lost terribly, I have to say. It was not a good night for me on the poker table.
I'm so excited to have you here, and I always like to start with a fun little icebreaker. I need to know, you are a professor yourself.
Yes.
What was the most valuable class or course you have ever taken in your life?
I'm going to say, can I say 2 classes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Give me 2.
So they both were when I was at HBS. I went to Harvard Business School, and I would say pure on corporate finance.
Okay.
You have to know the numbers.
Yeah.
You have to know how they
Boring,
work.
but important.
You just, and they're not that boring once you get into them because they just tell human stories. But I also, that same semester, took a class about novels about business and just the human nature, that business is just a human story. And to learn both of those at the same time, I was like, okay, it's all coming together.
Quantitative and qualitative.
Yes.
You got to have both.
Yes.
You have obviously had such a fantastic and fascinating career journey, from journalist to business exec to best-selling author to NYU professor. Like, what's been the most surprising financial lesson you've learned along the way?
I learned it really early.
Ooh,
actually, I was very young, and a friend of mine, I think I was lamenting not being able to get the first house I was going to buy, and he said to me, "There's no last best deal."
Wait. There's no last best deal. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, I didn't get it at first. I was like, no, this is the last best deal. This house is amazing. There'll never be a house that's inexpensive again. It's perfect. It's in the perfect location. And he was a very wise person who had been on the street. Actually, he was a Wall Street, not girly, but guy-y. And he just said, that's not how it goes. There's no last best deal. And you make such dumb decisions in your life thinking it's the last best deal. And you do it even in a relationship. It's not, but you do it buying stuff. You do it when you're looking at clothes on sale. You do it when you're looking at a job and the job's not quite right, but you don't think you're going to get another job offer. But the truth is there is no last best deal, and you've got to be sensible about it. You cannot be impulsive. That has saved me. That little line has saved me from more stupid decisions over the years than any other piece of advice. Not that I have not made stupid decisions. I have, but that one has saved me.
Wow. That's like rewiring my brain right now.
No, it's so true.
Because it's almost like scarcity mindset, right?
Yes, but he was saying, other deals come along, and you've got to understand that there are going to be other opportunities, and the way your emotions get played with. I mean, the world is manipulating you into thinking that there is a last best deal. That's on a sale, on a house, on a job, and it's manipulating that so that you buy or you do something against your best interest. That's what the world can be manipulating you into, and you have to just hold firm in knowing another deal will come, another option will come. This is if there's a to it, listen to it.
I love that.
Yeah, me
and
too.
speaking of opportunities,
Yes.
You are someone who is very much seen as a guiding mentor in the career space. And you often talk about not necessarily just getting the right job, but getting the right job for you and liking it and having the skills for it. Can you actually talk to me a little bit about what your Value Bridges tool is and what that means?
Yeah, let me talk to you about it. I mean, you talk about creating your best life financially and having the money. The service you serve to humanity is gigantor, and I
Thank you.
can't touch the hem of your skirt on that. I come at it a different way, which is that you need to find your purpose, which is which often ends up being work that you like, maybe not love, but really like. And then everybody's always telling you to find your purpose, though. They're telling you that from when you're a little kid. And then they stop. And they don't tell you what your purpose, they don't tell you what purpose even is. So the class I teach at NYU Stern at the business school is about where you find your purpose. And my premise is that your purpose lies at the intersection of your values, your aptitudes, and your economically viable interests. So these are three gigantic data sets that frankly we just never access. But the class and the book and everything else is about excavating these three data sets. So the first data set is your values. Well, frankly, I have research that shows only 7% of people can even define a value. They mix them up with virtues, okay? You say, what are your values? Oh, kindness, integrity, courage, resilience. And I'm like, that's great. Nobody disagrees. Those are virtues.
Yeah.
Everybody should have more of them.
Yeah.
Values are choices. And I have a values inventory. There's 16 personal values. They range from how big a life you want to how much money you want to how important love is to you. And it says there's 16 values. And we measure those values with a tool called the Values Bridge, which anyone can take. You go to thevaluesbridge.com. After we excavate your values, we look at what your aptitudes are. Once again, almost no one knows what their aptitudes are until they're like 40. And the world has kind of finally told them. But in fact, there's kind of 9 big intellectual aptitudes. Are you a generalist or a specialist? Are you a brainstormer or an idea supporter? These sort of like, how is your brain wired? What comes more easily to you getting to be better at it? And then another part of your aptitudes is your personality. Because you know as well as I do that you can really be great at a job because of your personality, or you can really suck at a job because of your personality. So the second big data set are your aptitudes. And then the third is, what is the work that calls you intellectually or emotionally, but also pays you according to how much you want to be paid? Because money really matters, but it matters more to some people than others. And I mean, you're talking about being fiscally very responsible.
Yeah.
But the facts are, some people, what that means is having a helipad for each child, okay? And for other people, it means, having enough for one vacation a year.
Yeah.
And you got to know that about yourself because it's not created equally for everybody. So we put those 3 data sets together, we come out with your purpose. That generally leads to very robust careers, and because it takes all the data into account.
What is your perspective on telling people to search for their purpose versus following your passion?
Hate. Just if you want to trigger me or make if you want to upset me at a dinner party, just mention passion, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm not adverse to people following their passion if they're good at it. Okay, it's I like singing, okay? I love singing, but I've actually been in church and had people turn around and say to me, please lower your voice, stop singing. Okay, I'm bad, okay? I'm just bad. And so I say that, this is why I like my system, but I like systems, period.
Yeah.
Maybe because I'm a business school professor, but I like knowing what your values are. That's kind of what your passion would be, what you love to do, or your interest would be a passion. I love dogs. Did I go into dog care? No, I did not. Okay,
Right.
I had other aptitudes. So you've got to look at the intersection of all that data. So passions are fine if you have the aptitudes, and you may not. So if you have a big passion and you don't have the aptitudes, that's what we call a hobby. Okay, so go do it as a hobby.
Yeah.
But if you got to make money at it, you better
gotta
have
be good.
you better be good at it.
You got to be good. There's something else that you mention in your book, Becoming You.
Yes.
The authenticity gap. What is that?
Can I nerd out on you for a little bit?
Yeah,
Okay.
hit me.
All right. So look, we all have values. I would say there are 16 human values, and it's how much we want. And let's just use the example of value of scope. Do you want a big, huge, exciting life? Do you want to be Bianca Jagger riding in on a white stallion at Studio 54? Or do you want to have a feed on TikTok that goes, I like this little life, and then have like a child in a very twee pinafore, okay?
Yeah.
How big, exciting, and you could be somewhere in the middle, or you could want to be like the most interesting person in the world, or you could really want a life with a lot of psychological safety, and you know what you're going to be doing in 1 year from today at 2:00 in the afternoon, and everything in between, okay? That's the value. Now, you may be living it or not. Okay, we call that expressing it. I mean, I may have very, very, very high scope. I want to be Bianca Jagger, but I have a job as a librarian and I have 6 children. I can't live my value of scope. The authenticity gap is the term we use to describe the variance between the value that you hold and how much you're actually living it. And in the Values Bridge, in the tool that I developed for my class and which you can take, it tells you on every single value how much of an authenticity gap you have. So one of your values is maybe going to be affluence. I'm sure everybody who listens to you has affluence somewhere in there, and financial security. And it may be your number 3 value, and your authenticity gap could be very small, 3%. So you're pretty close to having the amount of money you want. Or it could be your number 1 value, and you could have a 100% authenticity gap, meaning I want to be much richer.
Yeah.
And everything in between. I mean, we've had 55,000 people have taken the test to date, and we sort it by generation. And in Gen Z, affluence is the 4th highest value. So, I mean, there's a lot of desire for affluence among Gen Z right now, and most generations, but not as much as Gen Z.
Yeah. And I think that's starting to really, really express in society because, one, we are getting fed social media and people want more stuff, and stuff costs money, experiences cost money. Can you give us an example of like how this plays out for someone who isn't necessarily in their 20s? Like say I'm in my 40s or my 50s, I'm listening, and without even taking this test, which by the way, everybody should actually use this tool and make sure you're taking this, but I already know I'm like 100% off of the life that I want. I have a huge authenticity gap. How does someone look at their life and say, this isn't what we discussed, friend? Like, how do I fix it?
I see it every single day. I just finished teaching. I teach Becoming You in these 3-day intensives on the NYU campus that are open to the public. And so every single time I go through one of these, and I'll tell you something, the vast majority of students are in their 40s and 50s. Because you get to your 40s and you're like, oh, wait, this is not what I was hoping for or what I expected. And then you have this moment of reckoning and you say, I've got to fix it. So the first step is to find out which of the values are not being lived. Is it money, or is it, there's a value called beholderism, which is a desire to have things look beautiful, including yourself. This is a very high value for a lot of people. I mean, I have it as a high value. I want my homes to be beautiful. I want my hair to be beautiful. I spend lots of money
on that. By the way, your hair looks beautiful today.
I mean, you can spend a lot of money on making your house and yourself look beautiful. And some people don't care about this value at all. For instance, my eldest son, okay? He just has put on the same t-shirt like when he graduated from college. He hasn't taken off, but he's a game designer, so that's okay. So, but a bunch of people have low beholderism also. That costs money. And so what happens is people see their values, and it's work. The work of our life is closing the authenticity gap on all of our values as best we can. Sometimes we can't because we have constraints. For instance, we have children, or we have a spouse who lives in a city where we can't get a job, or we just don't have the aptitudes to do the work that we think would fulfill us. In which case, you have to start figuring out what is the next best thing to do. It's work, though. I mean, you're talking about this is what I have been with people who have gotten back the results of their values bridge, and they've gotten literally, if you average all of the values authenticity gaps, and we weight your top values more heavily, and they look at it, and the results show that their overall values authenticity gap is 98%. I've been in the room when that's happened, and it's a look of just complete desperation and despair. And
I'd be horrified.
Yeah, no, they say, what do I do? What do I do? And usually what they say is, I knew it, because that's the ache, the gut feeling like this is not the beautiful life I was imagining that was going to be so available to me. And then we have to back out what's broken and actually systematically start fixing it. And it's on you. I mean, no one is going to fix your life for you.
Do you think there's ever a point where it's too late?
No, never. Never, never, never. I mean, I found my purpose at 60, okay, at 60. So I'm a person who's like, keep on going. And I've taught this.
It's so crazy to hear you say that because you're quite accomplished.
Yeah. It always looks good from the outside, doesn't it? I mean, I am a person who spent, one of the reasons why I love teaching Becoming You is because I am like the poster child for somebody who could have done it sooner. And it was after, I came up with the idea. I had spent my life as a business journalist. I'd been I ran a magazine for about business. I had been on the Today Show and CNBC talking about careers. And I was considered a career expert. I wrote a book about decision-making, which related to careers. And I was a person who was not kind of drinking my own Kool-Aid because I like to put it sort of all under a big hashtag and call it love. And the reason was I had 4 children. I had a husband with a big career. And I also had voices in my head that were preventing me from betting on myself. I was like, why would I bet on myself? I mean, the moment I finally stepped out and stepped into my purpose, I literally, I was alone in my room at night and I thought, for the first time in my life, I'm going to do this terrifying thing. I'm going to bet on myself. So I think there's a lot of reasons that we don't. But from the outside, of course, and I was happy and I was accomplished. Was I in my area of transcendence, or was I living how I'm living now, doing work that I don't even want to sleep? I love it so much. No, that I had to finally work my way to, but it is never too late. I mean, I've taught Becoming You as a methodology to people up until like the oldest person, I think, is 78 years old. So,
wow.
Yeah.
What if someone were to take, this values bridge assessment and realize that some of their values were just naturally mutually exclusive from others? So say like, I really want to help people. I want to be a teacher. But also, what was the word you used? Beholderism?
Yeah, that's right. But high beholderism, right.
High beholderism and high desire for affluence.
That's right.
But like, teachers don't make a lot of money typically. What do we do?
You just nailed hit the nail on the head in that very, very often, 90% of the time, the values bridge reveals that you have values that are in conflict. All right, and we actually give you a score that tells you how high your conflict is.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, I know it. And, I see people get it and they see the conflict scores, very high. And they say typically, I knew it, right? But now you see which ones are exactly in conflict. So the tool identifies which one of your values. So look, I have students. The number one value for many generations is something that we call eudaimonia. And let me just explain what that means and why we call it eudaimonia. It's self-care. And it's personal flourishing. It's recreation. It's pleasure. For some people, it means sex, okay? It's stuff that makes you feel good. And this is not generationally, this is a newer value. The reason why we call it eudaimonia is there's 2 reasons. Number one is in previous values inventories, it's called hedonism. And I think that's very judgy, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's like, is self-care hedonism or is it self-preservation? I don't want to be the judge of that. And so people didn't like finding out. So the other previous inventories call it hedonism. But eudaimonia is the Greek word for flourishing. And so this is all about personal flourishing. It doesn't happen to be very high value for me, but I am surrounded by people for whom it's their number one value. Okay, so very typically, people will take the values bridge and their number one value will be eudaimonia, which means that the number one thing that is driving them, that is motivating them, are activities like self-care, pleasure, recreation, things that feel very sweet, that delight you, okay, that feel good, no matter what they are. And it could be going to a rave or it could be reading a book. It could be knitting or it could be whatever. And then the number 2 value is affluence. And then their number 3 value is achievement, which is the value of having success other people can see. And
you can't have fun all the time, make a ton of money, and have success.
That's right. And then they look at their results and they say things like, no wonder I'm so unhappy. Or they say the first thing that happens is they get mad at someone besides themselves. And they're like, this is not how it should be. And I'm usually the first line of defense. And they say, well, this kind of sucks. Okay, I don't like this. And I say, look, I did not make these rules. Right. And maybe someday there's going to be a world where you can have eudaimonia as number 1 and affluence and achievements as 2 and 3, and it's going to be fine. That's just typically not how it works. That usually you have to repress or suppress eudaimonia to achieve those other 2 goals. Or alternatively, you can be a grown-up and you can say, because my eudaimonia is so high, I'm actually not going to have the affluence and achievement that I would like. But I'm making that choice. So once you find out your values are in conflict, and you will, You will find out some values are in conflict. That you're going to have to make some choices and make some trade-offs. Now, one of the things you can do when you take the test is if somebody you love or you're in a relationship with, like your partner, they take it also. You check a little box and your values come up next to each other, and you also find out which one of your values are in conflict with your partner's values.
I'm forcing my husband to take this as soon as we get home.
I know. So one of the values is called belovedness, and that's how important your relationships are. So your one partnered relationship.
Yeah.
So belovedness, some people really, their whole life is around their partnered relationship, their romantic relationship, their spouse, their boyfriend, whatever.
I would say it's really important to me.
Okay, so it's probably going to pop as one or two for you if you think it is. You're going to kind of want that to be for him too. Okay, because I think it is. It may come out in his as number 11, 12, 13, 14. And I think that what ends up happening, that happens in relationships all the time. And the couples point a lot of fingers and they say, you're this, you're that. But actually, it's about this one value that you have different levels of. And you can either work that out or you can be mad about it. But my daughter's getting married, and she and her fiance took the values bridge, and I was just praying, please God, let their values be the same. And their top 6 values were exactly the same. I was very relieved. They both shared everything. I think you kind of want that.
Yeah.
Can you have a happy relationship if your values don't match? Yes, but it's more work. It is.
Yeah. I say this all the time when it comes to money. It's like, you don't have to be debt-free. You don't have to come from a similar background, but you better value $1 the same way.
Yes, and the values which will tell you that, because it will show you where you are on affluence, if it's where it is 1 through 16, and it will show where they are on affluence. And actually, this causes problems in relationships. I mean, what you say is exactly true. If one member of the relationship, like money is the driving motivation, and then for the other person, it's like money shmoney. You're going to fight about it for the next 40 years.
That's so real. Oh, man. All of my employees who are listening to this, we will also be taking this in the workplace so I can learn about you.
It is. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I want to pivot now. So once people take this assessment and they have a better understanding of themselves, now we got to talk a little bit about how to use it to our advantage to actually differentiate in the workplace. And you talk about this a lot. These days, the job market, let's be honest.
Yes. It's
kind
brutal.
of heinous.
It's brutal. It's brutal. I mean, I look into the faces of my students and I think they're scared, and they should be. And look, they're NYU Stern MBA, so they're in better shape than most in getting jobs. But it's not easy out there, and the reason is there's many different reasons. But one of the reasons are the employers are scared to hire because nobody knows what AI is going to do.
And oftentimes we're given advice to go with the flow, don't stand out. You actually say the opposite.
Absolutely.
You say differentiation is good.
Yes.
Talk to me a little about how standing out across the crowd professionally translates into making more money, more success, more promotions, more everything.
All right. So let me talk to you about some data that is kind of mind-blowing. All right.
love
I wrote about it for the Wall Street Journal, which is that we now know what the top values are for every generation. And so my students are generally Gen Z or Gen Z-ish. And so we know that their top 3 values are eudaimonia, number 1. Number 2 is voice, which is authentic self-expression. They want to be themselves in the workplace. And the third is a value we call non-sibby, which is helping other people, not for oneself, non-sibby. And so those are actually they want self-care. They want to be authentically express their full true selves, and they want to help other people. And that's kind of beautiful. And I said, okay, fine, I get it. I teach these students. I know them in my bones. And then I was thinking, but I'm on a lot of public boards. And when I'm sitting around in the boardroom, I'm hearing people say, we cannot hire, we cannot find anybody. And I'm thinking, but there's a lot of people out there that are looking for jobs. So I thought, let's do some research. I have something called Becoming You Labs, great data scientists and so forth. And let's do some research on what hiring managers are looking for. And we gave them a list of all the values, and we said this was 2,100 hiring managers with a lot of experience in knowledge industries, banking, consulting, anything in tech. What is the top value you're looking for? And they checked off the top values they were looking for. The top 3 values they're looking for are...
Wait. Can I guess?
Yes, go ahead.
Like a crazy work ethic.
Yes. So that's number 3.
Okay, that's number 3.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm on Family Feud.
Yeah,
with
I know,
Steve Harvey
right.
Someone who is a good team player.
Yes, that would fall under scope. That's number 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know what
You know what? It's achievement. They want to win.
Oh, yeah, like
So
winners.
winning,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
they want, number one, achievement, wanting to win. That's what the number
Okay.
one was. They want people who want to win. Number two, people who have high scope, wanting stimulation, action, learning, and so forth. That would be team. That could fall under team.
Yeah, yeah,
team.
yeah.
And then number three, they want some people who are high on work centrism. They work for work's sake. Okay. Well, if you look at Gen Z's top three values and what they're looking for, so we actually crunched the numbers to find out. We have all 55,000 data points. When you crunch the numbers to say what percentage of Gen Z has those top three values that hiring managers want, it's 2%. It's 2%.
No.
So I went around to all the top executives I know, CEOs and others, and I ran all the numbers by them. And I said, what do you think about these numbers? And typically what you heard was, I knew it. I thought, maybe it's even lower. And I said, no, it's 2.03%. Okay, we've crunched these numbers. And they said, well, this is what it's like. It's like water everywhere, but never a drop to drink. And other executives said, we just want to find those 2%. So look, if you're in that 2%, my advice to you is when you go into job interviews and you're writing your resume, identify as in the 2%. I mean, if you want, like you can't, if you, but it's an incredible thing to differentiate yourself and say, look, I live inside your head, dear hiring manager. You're looking for somebody who really values winning, scope, activity, action, learning, and also work centrism, working like a savage. I got those values. Show them the results of your test. I've got those values. So you may have to train me in some stuff, but I've got the raw material you're looking for. I say it. Say it, say it, say it.
Really?
Yes.
You don't think it's kind of corny to be like, I am a hard worker?
No, I don't think there's anything. No. And you know what else I don't think is corny? I think when you're in a job, say, I want this job. Everyone thinks it's cringe. I interviewed somebody today, and at the end of the interview, I said to him, do you want this job? And he goes, oh, yes, I'm very interested. I know I can do this job. And I was like, why did I have to ask you if you want it? Okay?
Wow.
Why make them, say, I really want this job.
Yeah.
I know it feels cringe, but you're fighting out there with a lot of other people.
Yeah.
And you got to make your case.
Wow. And you've got to be like really, really firm.
Yeah.
And like make them believe it.
Yeah, and well, you want to be, you don't want to sound like an asshat. You want to be like you want to be a real human being.
Yeah.
But it is a real human being to say, can I say something that's maybe kind of cringe? I really want this job.
Yeah.
And I think I've got the right stuff. I mean, this is your shot. If you want the job, say it.
I mean, talk about authenticity right there.
Yes, that's right.
That is
That's
so
right.
authentic.
To be vulnerable like that.
Yeah. You mentioned the number one skill or thing that these employers are looking for is achievement. They want winners. They want people who
it's
are
a value.
value.
They want people to want to win.
Yes.
Okay. So obviously, then we start talking about aptitudes, and they want people with certain aptitudes. But frankly, the job market and work is changing so much. Who knows what aptitudes are going to be needed in 6 months?
Right.
So companies are going to be hiring more and more for values, for raw material, and those are values. That's achievement, work centrism, scope, this hunger to get along with people, agency, belonging, all the other values that represent really well at work. Yeah.
So achievement is obviously so important.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about a B+ life. I once heard you mention a B+ life, and I was like, what is she talking about? Can you explain to me what a B+ life is?
Yes, every time I'm now ready for the hate, because every time I mention the B+ life, people's heads explode, and I kind of get it. And what I say, it's a dangerous thing to have a B+ life. And here's what I mean. First of all, the only person giving your life a grade is you. I'm not talking about being graded by your parents or society or teachers or partners. It's the grade we would give our own life if we were forced to grade it. And it's a dangerous thing because when it's good enough, which is a B+, you just settle. And you can live there for a really long time. And then a moment of crisis comes. Like, for instance, sometimes you see when somebody gets a very difficult diagnosis and they've been living a B+ life, and they think, why didn't I fight for the A life while I still could?
Yeah.
And so I want you to live an A life, if it's available to you, an A+ life, before you're sort of having a moment of reckoning. And the thing is, it's scary and hard, and you have to fight for your right to have an A+ life. I get it. But the problem with if your life is kind of mediocre, B-, usually we claw our way out of it because that's kind of unsustainable.
Yeah. Like C+ is really bad.
Yeah,
like
right.
You're trying to change.
You're trying to get out of it. B, when you start getting towards B and B+, which is pretty good enough, I can live, could be worse, man, you could live there for a decade.
Yeah.
And that's a lost decade. If if you work to get the sort of more exquisite life of an A+ life, which is just living your values much more fully and really leaning into this precious gift.
I'm obsessed with that because if your life's really good, you're incentivized to keep it there.
That's right.
If your life's really bad, you're incentivized to change it. But if your life's just okay,
That's right. You can stay there for a really long time.
you tread water.
Yeah, quietly making everyone around you miserable.
Wow. This is all so mind-blowing. Let's talk about it over like a scope of like time. So how do you think the people's relationship with time, money, happiness changes as you go through each generation? Maybe we say like 20s, 30s, 40s,
Yeah.
50s, 60s.
It used to be that people thought they could postpone joy. And so it
Wait,
used
talk to me about that.
Okay, well, when I was coming along, okay,
Yeah.
because I'm kind of older, right? When I was coming along, you front end loaded your life, and you did a huge amount of work, and you
Yeah.
made a huge amount of sacrifices in your 20s, and your 30s, and your 40s, and you thought, I'm going to go reap all of that good stuff in my 50s and 60s. And sometimes that was possible, and sometimes it wasn't. Okay. What's happened after COVID is that there's a lot of people who say, I'm not postponing anything anymore because we never know when the bottom's going to fall out.
Right.
And they want to reap earlier. But the problem is it's pretty hard to reap if you haven't sowed. So I think actually all of society is working this time question out. I mean, this is a huge question you ask. I think each individual is right now trying to work out when do they harvest. And I think everybody kind of has said, well, I want to harvest earlier. And then the oldsters are like, you can't harvest if you haven't planted. And
Yeah.
so I
Get rich
think,
quick.
yeah, that's right. And it's not possible.
Yeah.
Typically.
So we just talked a little bit about timing of like harvesting. We all want to enjoy life now.
Yeah.
But let's talk about timing in terms of taking risks. What are the smartest times throughout your life and your career for you to be making those career changes, to be reevaluating your values and seeing like, hey, if things don't line up, I need to make a big change.
Yes.
Like, when do we do that?
Well, look, your values are pretty set by age 25. So, and
Oh, wait. Okay, so 25. Like,
Yes.
I shouldn't be doing this at 21.
I think that you'll get a directionally very good answer at 21, but the research is not complete on this yet. A lot of things go into forming our values, our parents, our friends, our life experiences, trauma. Okay, a lot of our culture, our society, politics, all form. And it's a big stew, and we stir it up. And sort of by, I'd say 22 to 25, your values are pretty set. And what changes is how much you express them or don't express them, okay? So I think that, but you should revisit it every couple of years or every 2 years to say, look, where am I? Especially how much am I living it or expressing it? You asked another question that was just like, when is it good to take a risk or a bet on yourself,
Yeah.
right? And the answer to that depends on the person. Like I waited too long myself. I didn't bet on myself until quite late in my life. It was a bunch of different reasons. It was voices in my head. It was all sorts of stuff. And when I finally did it, I was like, what did I wait so long for? But by that time, I had a reasonable view that I had the stuff to succeed. I had really good experience. I had seen my way through a couple of crises and so forth. But you're not going to look, the truest thing in the world is, no risk, no reward. I mean, you can always look, there's two types of people in this world. Here's another one. The same person who said to me, there's no last best deal, also said to me, there's two types of people in the world. There are owners and there are employees. And at a certain moment, you have to decide if you want to be an owner and if you want to be fabulously rich, that's typically what you're going to have to be. And by an owner, I mean you're going to have to be an entrepreneur who starts their own thing, or a person who's, I think the word he used is like an owner or being owned, being an employee.
Yeah.
And when you figure out how much money matters to you, that's an easier decision to make. But if you're going to be an entrepreneur at some point, you're going to have to make that leap, and you're going to be poor before you're rich. But I always tell the story of when I was at HBS. There was, at the end of the year, when you graduated at Harvard Business School, back in the old days, they published your name. Get a load of this. They published your GPA, your grade point average. They published where you were going to work.
What?
Yes, this was the old days, 88. They published where you were going to work, and they published your starting salary.
What?
Yes.
That is kind of
Retro.
crazy, but like also amazing because then
Right.
you know what everybody's starting salary is.
Okay, so they did that in the older days, and they did it in rank order. So it started with the person with the highest salary. Didn't do it
Shut up.
rapidly. Yes. Okay, so this is the olden days. Well, come to the end of the year. Of course, this was not shocking at the time because it was
Yeah.
part of what we did, right? So there were these 7 guys in my class, class of 88, who oddly had their GPA And then there was no information on where they were going to work or what they were going to make. And these were like BMOCs. These were like finance bros. These are guys who had been at Goldman.
Wait, what is a BMOC?
A big man on campus.
Okay.
Sorry about that. And these were like, chest thumping famous guys on campus. And I was like, so I said to a friend of mine, I called them the Magnificent Seven because they always these fabulous guys. And I said, wait, what's going on with the Mag 7? There's no job or nothing.
There's no number.
And he said, yeah, I heard they're all moving out to Silicon Valley. And I said, now remember, we were writing our finals in those days by hand. And I said, what's Silicon Valley? And he said, I think it's near San Francisco. And I said, oh, why are they moving there? And he said, I think they like golf. And I was like, we had no idea. But they were betting on themselves. They all went on to become billionaires. They all went out to Silicon Valley in '88, joined or started companies for them.
They made Silicon Valley Silicon Valley.
They did. And they said, screw the voices. We don't care what it says in the graduation. I cared so much what it said in that graduation book, man. It was going to say Bain and it was going to say that starting salary, and it did. And they didn't care. They bet on themselves and they left. Now, these were very, very talented guys, but they all were. And I think they did all like golf, but that's not why they were going.
Right.
I know. It was incredible. What a lesson I learned from that. What a lesson. They were just 0 Fs given. They were going out to where they were just went out to, this was a mega trend and we had no idea. And they just walked right into it. I still think about the guts that it took.
Yeah. Wow. When it wasn't cool to be a Silicon Valley tech bro.
Didn't even know what Silicon Valley was.
Right.
Sand Hill Road had no meaning to us, okay?
Yeah.
It was a nothing. It was just the beginnings of the beginning.
Have you ever seen someone take like a risk and it didn't pay off?
Yes, I've taken risks and it hasn't paid off. So a couple of years ago, my son and my late husband's grandson started a music tech company together called Quadio, and it looked like it was going to grow. It was a music streaming service for college artists. So if you were a student,
cool, yeah.
We thought it was really cool, and so did everybody else at the beginning. And it grew like unbelievably. Started like 2018, and it like took off. There were like 55 employees, and I at a certain point they were making enough money that I kind of went in to run things because these were 21-year-olds.
Right.
And the next oldest employee was like 26, and then there was me. And it was going incredibly well, but our business model was based on word of mouth virality and in-person concerts on campuses. And then COVID came. And it just blew up. And we made a bunch of bets when our business model was blowing up. We made a bunch of bets, and we didn't bet correctly, and it all blew up. It was terrible. Some of the worst phone calls I've ever made in my life, probably the worst phone calls I've ever made in my life, was calling the investors and saying, I lost your money. Now the biggest loser was me because I invested my own money in it, and maybe that helped them feel better. But, to a person, except for one person, all the rest said, I'd bet on you again, Suzy. This happens in business. You tried your hardest. We saw you killing yourself to save it. You did everything you could. And then one other person was really, really mad and is still really, really bitchy to me.
We just talked so much about entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I'd love your perspective on, there has been data that's shown that like the easiest way to become a millionaire is actually not to be an owner. It's to find a strong paying job and climb the ladder. So, high paying industries, law, consulting, business, tech, things like that. What is your perspective on trying something scary that could really, really blow up in your face versus if you are in a situation where you are able to get one of those jobs that has a 6-figure starting salary, mid-level employees can, be promised 7 figures. Like, how do you weigh the benefit of that? Because sure, if you don't have anything, like, if you're not going to be hired into one of these industries, it's a lot easier because the opportunity cost is less.
It all comes down to your values. Okay, so, if your value is so there's a value I talked about, it's called scope, and that is about whether you want to, and you could have a value of low scope, that you want a predictable life with high visibility, high predictability, high self-control, then one of those jobs is fantastic. You're going to slowly climb up the ladder as long as you continue to show up really well in your relationships with people and your ideas and your execution. There's just 3 routes to success, by the way: people, ideas, and execution. And you can slowly but surely climb that ladder and make a really good living that way. And that's fine if your values are lower scope and affluence is not off the charts, but it's a pretty high but moderate value for you. Maybe it's number 6 or 7. That's fine. It all is about it's not, there's no absolute answer to that. The answer is all in you. What do you want in the relative ranking of your values? So say your top value is something we call belonging. That's friendship, okay? And for some people, that's the number 1 value. It's not a lot of people. It's only 11% of people have that as their top value. Then when you're looking at that duality, you're looking at, do I go be an entrepreneur or do I join an organization and stay with it? Well, the answer is obvious. Your top value is belonging. Go join that corporation and stay with it. Make a zillion friends because you're all part of the same company, right? But if your number 1 value is excitement, scope, and its agency, which is self-determination, then you're going to have to go be an entrepreneur. Otherwise, you're going to have a huge authenticity gap. So the answer is just completely in your values.
Are there any values or aptitudes that are most commonly found across the most successful people you've met?
Well, I think that without a doubt, those 3 values of achievement, scope, and work-centrism are present in all of them. And in fact, the most successful people that I know and met, and I've been really lucky in my life to meet super successful people because I was married to somebody who was successful himself as a CEO and knew a lot of them. And so I kind of boom, one day suddenly started meeting them all. To a person, almost none of them care about money. They're just not driven by money. They're just not. Ken Langone's not driven by money, for instance. I think driven by helping people, driven by
winning.
Success and winning. Winning is fun. Giving people jobs is fun. He was a poor kid, for instance, and he just was what was the first money he got? And Jack was the same way. My late husband was the exact same way. It was he just was not about that. Money only was a measure of success.
Of the win.
The win. And so that they share this desire for achievement. They generally tend to like people and want to be around people and get a lot of energy off of people. And they just work constantly. And if there was 7 days a week and if there was an 8th day, they'd work it too. That tends to be pretty present across the board.
I love that. So this is a money podcast.
Okay.
I have to ask you.
Yeah.
You've held so many different job titles, but
Yeah.
these days, can you break down your different income streams for us?
Yes.
Where are you getting what percentages from where?
Okay. I am a professor at NYU Stern, and so that's my day job, and I have a professor's salary, and I feel so grateful to have that job. So that's one. I have a wonderful speaking business where I travel around the world, and unbelievably, people pay to hear me talk.
No, that's incredibly believable, by the way.
Thank you. So then I do. I have a business a whole separate business where I have created the Values Bridge, and that's an income stream because there's a free version, but unfortunately engineers are not free, so there's also a paid version, which is better. And so that's an income stream, and we're very fortunate that tool is really taking off. And then I have a great income stream from teaching Becoming You in open enrollment to the public. And I split some of that revenue with NYU, but otherwise that's also an income stream. That's mainly it. I don't have any passive income like real estate or anything like that. I live in my homes, and I'm still a hardworking, I still earn my money with my activities.
Are you investing any in startups, businesses, anything like that?
Yes, I do invest. I invest, but I have good help. Okay, so I use a bank, and they help me a lot, and they check in with me all the time, and I look at it, and I trust the experts on this, and I ask great questions because I know which questions to ask. And then there are certain causes that I really believe in, but I believe that capitalism can be the force for good. So, for instance, I invest in I'm a vegan. I invest in vegan businesses and businesses that help take animals out of the food system. So I invest in those companies. And I'm trying to teach my children how to invest. And so we have a foundation, and so what I do is I allow them each Christmas time, I give them a certain amount of money, and I say, I want to see where you would put this money to help social causes, and then I talk to them about their decisions. So that's actually the funnest part of it is helping my kids understand better how to spend money wisely.
Yeah. That's great. Nobody needs any more junk in their stocking.
Yeah, I know, no, and they're too old to have stockings.
Yeah, exactly. But even so, I feel like that's such a great Christmas gift because it's the gift that really does.
Yeah, no, they love it. Actually, it's their favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, so now we are getting into our rapid fire. So just tell me the first thing that comes to mind when I ask you this question.
Okay.
Best money advice you've ever received.
Well, can I go back to there's no last best deal? That was such
That's a good one.
I mean,
that's a good one. What is the worst financial decision you've ever made?
Oh, how much time do we have? How much time do we have? I definitely overinvested in that startup I mentioned to you, Quadi. You know what I did? I invested in marketing before I invested in technology. That was dumb. I thought, oh yeah, the technology's coming along, and let's just get the sales apparatus up and running. That was dumb. And then I made a really dumb decision that I kind of got saved at last minute, which is I bought a house I shouldn't have. After my husband died, I made a decision too rapidly, and I would advise anybody who's going through a traumatic life event to go more slowly than they think. But I bought a house that I didn't end up using, and it was too far away from the city, and I had to unload it, and I had tried to fix it up. It was, I got out by the skin of my teeth, but that was a dumb decision. Completely own it. I just moved too fast.
What is one piece of advice you would give for someone who is dealing with grief?
Find other people in grief. I would never have made it without my my widow friends. I mean, I just had friends who came up alongside me, and they had sort of seen me through the end of my husband's life, and they were able to talk to me about stuff I was going through that no one else could. So I think find fellow travelers. Don't do it alone.
What is one thing you always splurge on without guilt?
Oh, shoes. I'm of the hello lover school of thought with shoes. I know there's a scene in Sex and the City where she sees some blonde Mary Jane's, and she goes, hello lover. Right? When I saw that, I was like, yes, I've felt that way about a shoe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll get myself some shoes. I love shoes. I don't know, the small indulgence. And so I think sometimes it's just frivolous and it feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt that way about a shoe, and then it gave me a blister.
Yeah, no, I'm not
Every
beyond
single
that.
pair.
Right, yeah, every pair.
What's one thing you'll never spend money on again?
Well, from a business point of view, I will never spend money again on marketing until I know the product market fit is real. This was a lesson I had to learn the hard way. You've got to chase growth. You can't buy growth. You've got to chase growth. The people have got to be saying to you, your product's really good, then you can go for it. So I won't spend money on that. And I think I think it's going to be very countercultural, but I'm spending less and less money on travel. I think in my very old because I've just traveled so much in my life. I've been to 69 countries.
Wow.
And you know what? There's no place like home. And I think I've got my 3 dogs. And I think I'm becoming more of a homebody. There's just sheer joy at home. I mean, there's a time in your life to really travel. And with the amount of TikToks I consume on travel, you would think I was traveling constantly. But I think I'm living vicariously that way. But I think I'm spending less and less on it, and I'm leaning more into the joy of my homes.
Are you one of those crazy dog moms that's like, oh, my dog needs to drink filtered water with an ice cube in it and like human grade food?
No, I'm not that crazy. But
all of my friends are now.
Okay, no, I really love my dogs. I have German Shepherds. I have a Dachshund as well. And I've been a dog person my whole life, and I'm on the board of the Humane Society, and I'm very involved with animal protection. But dogs are dogs, and that's what makes them great. And they do eat good food. And like I would never buy them like clothing.
Yeah.
Okay. I would never put like my dachshund in a tutu or anything like that.
Yeah.
You know, they're dogs.
Yeah.
And that's what makes them so great. But they do sleep on the bed with me, and I'm probably underselling what kind of dog mom I am here.
Yeah. If you could go back in your entire life, is there anything that you would undo?
No. Because it's gotten me here. I mean, there's things I wish hadn't happened. You know, I've lost friends, and then, of course, the worst grief of all, and that I lost my husband. So I wish it hadn't happened. But that was the narrative of my life that was written for me. And so, but because I'm at a place, my children are healthy, and now I have grandchildren. If it's like that butterfly's wings. I mean, if I changed one thing, I wouldn't be where I am now. I mean, are there things I wish I'd hurt fewer people. I mean, along the way, when we're not our best selves, we hurt people. I mean, I'm sure I was, when I was going through I was married before Jack, and I went through a divorce, and I'm sure I was unkind to people who were trying to love on me. I'm sure I was unkind to my sisters, who were my best friends, and they were very. So I'm sure there's things I could have and should have done better in moments when I was not my, let's just put it this way, best self. But I consider it all a big wisdom project. That gets you to where you eventually belong.
I was just going to say, you are a treasure trove of wisdom and probably the most self-aware person I've ever met. I'd be like, I'm perfect. What do you mean? I was never mean to anybody.
No.
No.
Oh God. So no. Yeah.
I love that answer. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Please tell everyone who's listening where we can find you across social media, where we can read Becoming You, where we can get it, where we can take all of your
shameless
assessments.
promotion. First of all, it's been fantastic to be with you. You are a national treasure and international treasure. You can follow me at Suzy Welch on Instagram. That's my major platform. I'm on LinkedIn and TikTok, of course. And you can go to SuzyWelch.com. That's a really good place to find out about the book and my newsletter and my podcast. But we also, if you're interested in my tools, we have BecomingYouLabs.com, and that describes all the tools that are part of the Becoming You methodology. So you can't miss me. I'm out there.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Net Worth and Chill, part of the Vox Media Podcast Network. If you liked the episode, make sure to leave a rating and review and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Got a burning financial question that you want covered in a future episode? Write to us via podcast@yourrichbff.com. Follow Net Worth and Chill Pod on Instagram to stay up to date on all podcast-related news. And you can follow me at YourRichBFF for even more financial know-how. See you next week. Bye!